Each team short a man. Casper is back against Bobby Smith. They lasted 7 seconds before. MacAdam now on the faceoff. Casper draws to Bourque. Bourque rolled it, stopped by Roberts, moves in, shot, a save, Vachon, and he rebounds it out to Casper. Now to Cashman. Can't move with it. Casper gets it over the line, into the corner, broken up by Roberts. Fighting for it. Cashman there. Had it. And finally, Bobby Smith flattened by Wayne Cashman. Cashman was ready to backhand it. Smith came in, and Cashman must have seen him coming somehow and bumped him and knocked him down.
Wayne Cashman turned the shoulder just at the right moment. Here he comes to try to dig the puck out. Here comes Bobby Smith. Watch the shoulder right there, and he just got Bobby Smith as he came in and knocked him down along the boards. And there has been plenty of action for Dave Newell, the referee, to keep his mind off other things, I'll tell you.
Well, the importance of this game, that 8th position is much more favorable than 9th. It's crucial, and Minnesota realizes that, even though they're 8 points ahead of Boston. Boston 2 games in hand. And Minnesota losing 3 in a row, and so they are chippy, and Boston, well, this is Boston Garden. And now Minnesota trying to move out against the forechecking of the Bruins. Greg Smith off for Gordie Roberts. Roberts carries all the way, looking for MacAdam. It rolls to Cashman, and Bourque flattens MacAdam, and Bourque is going out for high sticking. And now there they go, Bourque and MacAdam, and Bourque comes right back at him, and they're toe-to-toe, Bourque and MacAdam. Al MacAdam from Prince Edward Isle, a veteran of National Hockey League play, and Ray Bourque. And the linesmen adopting different strategy this time. They're going to let them fight. And McCrimmon is in the corner with Greg Smith, and that may break out. But the extra penalty going here will be to Bourque for high sticking. Well, I tell you, Brassica and Collins, the 2 linesmen, I think they're tired. They're going to let these fellows fight from here on. And when they finally get tired, and there goes McCrimmon and Greg Smith. And a left by McCrimmon. And back comes Greg Smith with some effective rights. And they're really exploding now. Newell looking on. Some heavy hitting there. John, we had a long 17 days off, and one of them I saw some amateur fights down in North Dartmouth. And I think the program went about 3 hours, but I tell you, there's been more fighting here.
Well, I think that Dave Newell right now has got to start throwing players out of this hockey game. That's the only way he's going to settle, or any chance to settle this thing down, is to throw a couple of players out and warn them that any more fighting, he's going to throw them out.
McCrimmon and Roberts go at it, and Roberts pounds him down. So, thankfully, the linesman, Brassica, steps in. Gordie Roberts and Brad McCrimmon. McCrimmon already was being bounced out for fighting Greg Smith. And the amazing thing is, what has prompted this antagonism? There was an occasion a couple of years ago, Don Cherry, the coach, and John Wensink here. You'll recall it when Wensink challenged the Minnesota bench and got no takers. I think maybe that still rankles, and now they're showing that they're going to stand up and fight. I don't know.
Hard to understand what really prompted. At 7 seconds of the first period, Bobby Smith and Steve Casper, 2 minutes for high sticking and 5 minutes for fighting each, and before the players could get to the penalty box and settle down, Crowder and Payne went at it, and we've had a succession of battles between players, and we are yet to pass the midway point of the first period.
Out goes Greg Smith. Out goes Brad McCrimmon. Oh, a fight at the bench. Keith Crowder, Marco Barron, Greg Smith. The bench is empty. Smith. As far as I could see, Keith Crowder and Marco Barron starting that. And the cameraman is right in the midst of it. And the punches are whirling all over the garden. And it is one of the wildest scenes we have ever seen at the Garden. It started. That cameraman is not going to make it, John, in the runway.
It is hard to understand what prompted this, number one, and how it came to carry on the way it has. But the game is bigger than what we're seeing right at this moment, as the players, and McCrimmon is still on the ice, and he is over there with MacAdam. That could break out at any moment. McNabb is with Kristoff, and we have still got a lot of problems coming up.
Newell is telling both of them to break it up. But in the runway, as you can see, a jam of players. And it's going to be awfully hard for Newell to sort it out. But coming off the bench, there is, of course, it all happened right near the Bruins bench. The Minnesota team had to come off their bench and cross the ice. And how Newell will sort it out, we don't know, but hopefully he will.
I believe Crowder was in the penalty box. He was the player who was serving the 2-minute bench minor penalty for the Bruins. He took a swing at Roberts, I believe. And we still have McCrimmon and MacAdam as the linesmen trying to muscle their way through.
And since all the players have come on the ice, they're on the ice. They're staying there and milling around. And there have been articles this year of a lack of fighting and brawling and milling about and pulling jerseys, and there has been. And yet we see this scene tonight. John, it's
well, if you stack these end to end, they're going to make up for all the lack of whatever all season long, because this has been something else again.
The only men at peace, Meloche and Rogie Vachon. And 11:02 left in the first period. There's Beaupre, the backup goaltender. The Bruins backup goaltender, who was in that brawl there, he couldn't avoid it. He was sitting in the runway, was Marco Barron. Now, if that did break out, and it was Crowder, whom I'm sure it was.
Well, for this little thing that just went on, the start of that came with Ray Bourque high sticking in the corner at 8:58. And that seemed to break out into a battle, as both teams had a man in the penalty box, at least as far as their on-ice strength is concerned, due to those bench minor penalties. But up to this point, we had 126 minutes in penalties called in 8 minutes 58 seconds. Now we'll have to add whatever is assessed here, and who knows what the referee will do at this moment. But I think he's reached the point, Fred, where it's going to have to come to throwing players out of the game to try to settle this down. But they are still milling about. As you see, the two linesmen, Collins and Brosecker, along with the hidden referee, Dave Newell. Now, he will ask the opinion of the two linesmen as to their versions of what went on. And he tends to go along with what they say about the various players and numbers. And we'll have to wait for the official announcement, because it's such a mess down there.
Well, it started, as John said, this particular segment with Bourque high-sticking MacAdam, and then they went at it, and the linesman adopted the theory of let them fight, but that didn't work at all. Apparently antagonized everybody as they watched it. And then, of course, it was McCrimmon and Greg Smith going at it. Then McCrimmon suddenly fighting with Gordie Roberts. And enough punches thrown to last a full season here at the Boston Garden. And the tough assignment goes to the referee, Dave Newell. And particularly tough assignment if two men ever earned their pay. Gordie Brassica and Kevin Collins, the linesman. And Newell now trying to sort it out. So, John, you had 17 days off and you played some golf. You went to Florida. You've got a nice tan.
Well, I feel great, but I'm exhausted now just watching what was going on down below, I'll tell you. Hopefully we can settle down and play some hockey. As there is no score in the hockey game, both goaltenders have not really had that much work, as there has been so many penalties, so many altercations, so many distractions, as we have registered 126 minutes in penalties in less than 10 minutes. That's unbelievable. And we are going to add to that here based on what's going on.
Marco Barron, he was in the altercation with Greg Smith. He's the backup goaltender. Jim Craig is not dressed for Boston. Got a report. I had a pleasant vacation, a trip to New Hampshire and North Conway, and thanks to Pete Davenport, Fox Ridge Resort, we had a tour in Bunky Wiley's helicopter of Crenmore, where they were skiing, up and over it in the helicopter, and up and over Kearsarge in the helicopter, and then went ice skating, John, in a pond, and then backpacked back. So had a good look at New Hampshire, and I can tell you, it can rival Florida with or without the snow.
Well, the big thing out in the west is the helicopter into the big tops of the mountains and come down. You didn't try that, did you?
No skiing, but Pete Davenport had picked out a mountain pond about 4 miles in there. Went ice skating for a while and then got out. So and after North Conway, went across to Rumney and then to Hanover, New Hampshire, and back down, and I got my first look at Rockingham Park. I've never been there, and it's only 30 minutes away in Salem, New Hampshire from Boston. Looked very calm and placid there.
Not very far as the crow flies, really. 11:02 left to play, first period, if you can believe it. We're waiting for the referee to assess the penalties. And we'd like to bring to your attention at this moment the Bruins old-timers will be in action at the Dennis Lynch Rink in Pawtucket, Rhode Island tomorrow night at 8 p.m. for the benefit of Doug Bones, Paul Hurley, Eddie Sanford, Paul Stewart, Pat Egan, Cliff Thompson, Art Chisholm, John McKenzie will also be in attendance. Should be a lot of fun if you're around the Pawtucket, Rhode Island area. The Dennis Lynch Rink tomorrow night, February 27th at 8 p.m. The Bruins old-timers.
Got a nice letter from Danny Rubadaw of Matthews Drive in Syracuse, New York. He watches and enjoys the Bruins hockey on cable TV and says he has a friend who watches it in Kingston, Ontario, Canada, via the cable TV network. Didn't think we're up that far, and Syracuse appears to be a new addition on cable TV. So thanks to Danny Rubadaw for that nice letter. Any other notes you want to clear up here?
I was just thinking, Fred, by the length of time that the referee Dave Newell is taking to assess the penalties, neither team may be able to field a complete squad. I don't know what's going on over there, but he is really writing an essay on...
What shape are you in? Can you get out there?
If they tilt the ice a little bit, I think I could go down, but I would have a problem coming back the other way.
Well, we could get the coaches. Cheevers and Doak aren't that far away from playing, particularly Gary Doak. And for Minnesota, Glenn Sonmore, the coach, and Murray Oliver is his assistant coach, the former Bruin. We're looking at Gary Doak there. And calm has descended on Boston Garden, but that's not to say it will last.
Well, for the benefit of those who may have just tuned in, there are the two gentlemen behind the bench of the North Stars, the coach Glenn Sonmore and his assistant coach Murray Oliver. But for those who have just possibly tuned in, there has been a brawl of some dimensions here at the Boston Garden between the North Stars and the Bruins. It all started at 8:58. But prior to that, we had 126 minutes in penalties assessed by the referee, Dave Newell. So you can see what has led up to this. And then all of a sudden, it exploded. And out of the runway, out of the penalty box, across the ice from the Minnesota bench, off the Boston bench. And this is what the referee, Dave Newell, as you look at him there, is trying to make some kind of semblance of order. I don't know how he's going to do it other than throw everybody off the ice. And
well, we've given Leo White an assignment in all this, our ace man who handles the graphics at the station and all those statistics. What is the record for penalty minutes? And Pete Davenport's sitting here, and maybe he's got it right now.
Most penalty minutes, both teams, one game. The Los Angeles Kings, the Philadelphia Flyers at Philadelphia on March 11th, 1979, 380 minutes. Thanks, Pete.
Can we match that?
I don't know. We may get
we had
there.
126 and going, and that's one game, 380. That's why they love the Flyers in Los Angeles.
Well, they only had 10 minors in that game. They're pikers. We've got 13 already here, so we'll see what happens.
Still awaiting the verdict of Newell. I would say it's just too much for one man to try and sort it out, and if he does sort it out and create some sort of a imbalance, John, that wouldn't be fair to either team. And I'm not blaming Boston or Minnesota. It's been an explosion. I mean, you can't, but it is his job, Solomon-like, to make the decision here.
I saw him talking on the telephone just a moment ago. Whom he was talking to, I really have no idea as to whether there's any thought that there are just too many penalties to call, and what he's going to do remains to be seen.
We're in the first period with the score. Boston nothing, Minnesota nothing.
Turn on your radio now and experience real rock and roll. FM 94.5 WCOZ.
Can a great city like Fall River build a whole new tomorrow?
You can make it.
We're doing it already. Fall River is making it in Massachusetts.
Paul Tundgren just won $100,000 in the lottery's horse race game. There are still more $100,000 winners to go. Maybe you could ride home a $100,000 winner too.
All right, Wayne Cashman, the captain of the Bruins, and Paul Schmier, a veteran defenseman, conferring now with Newell. I'm sure he's handing out the penalties immediately, and also a warning, because, quite frankly, there won't be enough players left to play.
Well, Bruins have a tough schedule coming up in the National Hockey League. They do not play Saturday night, but Sunday night here at the Garden, the Buffalo Sabres will make an appearance. Tuesday night we'll be in St. Louis. Wednesday night back at the North Stars, Bloomington, Minnesota. That's this coming Wednesday night. Saturday afternoon here at the Garden, Chicago Blackhawks will be in for a 1:15 game. Sunday night the Vancouver Canucks will make their appearance. So that is the schedule of upcoming games. All of those we will televise over 38.
The problem probably that could be really attributed to this particular outbreak, the most recent one, in the runway next to the Bruins bench, is the fact that Crowder didn't have room in the penalty box to sit there and serve his penalty, and he was sitting right there and apparently had words with Greg Smith coming off the ice, and pretty soon the eruption and the bench clearing from the Minnesota end. But how big can you make penalty boxes? Montreal out in front in their game tonight at Colorado, 2-0, and Pittsburgh leads Washington 4-2, probably in the second period of their game. We're still in the first period, 11:02 left in the first period, and we've had penalty after penalty.
If it was a little closer to the end of the period, I'm sure the referee, Dave Newell, would have said, hey, go to the dressing room while we straighten this out and take the intermission, but we have yet to reach the halfway mark. We've got a problem.
Most penalty minutes both teams won period, 372. The Los Angeles Kings and the Philadelphia Flyers, March 11th, 1979.
That must be the same game. They probably got 8 minutes in penalties after that one period. I don't know. It settled down a little.
Well, we're not going to match that, but it has taken Newell many minutes to compile the list, and now equally as long to pass the information to the respective captains. You look at referee Dave Newell, who is a veteran of National Hockey League officialdom, and perhaps that is fortunate. You can't blame Newell. He's tried to put a handle on this game initially, and the linesmen have moved in on fights, and then they tried the other tack of letting the two combatants go, but nothing seems to work. The fuse is there. Len Frizzoli, who's with security, he's down there next to Dan Canny, and he was right in the middle of that in the runway. There he is. As it was not calm down there, and our cameraman, we've lost. Oh, the cameraman was kicked out.
Well, we'd like to review the scoring at this moment, but there has been none. And the shots on goal have really been few and far between. But looking at the Boston Bruins, Fred, while we have a moment, I think over this season totally, it's been a very much up and down season, but from almost the start to the point at this time. Unpredictable might be a better word, but looking at them from the forwards back to the defense to the goaltender, it seems to me that the breakdown for most of it has come through the forwards, who have not produced with the kind of consistency to a great deal that they did in past years. And of course, that sometimes can affect what goes on in the defense corps back to the goaltender. Sometimes when the goals are scored, you can't always blame the defense. You have to check and see what the forwards have done to help out or to assist them in making that kind of a defensive plays. There have been too few forwards carrying the load for too many, and I think that's been one of the reasons why the Bruins have not played as consistently well as most people thought they were going to at the outset. And so we are still waiting, the referee, to try to straighten out this problem.
In the runway, as you perhaps saw in our coverage, was our cameraman Robin Fogden. He did a nice job. He was right in the midst of the battle. He has been kicked out of that area, not out of the game, I'm sure. There he is. Oh, here he is in the action. Where is the cameraman?
End of the first period, Pittsburgh having a problem. Washington rather, trying to find a consistent winning streak. They have a good team, but they have had their problems of late, trailing Pittsburgh 4-2. Pittsburgh's goals by Lonsberry, Anderson, Malone, and Keogh, while Gartner and Lofthouse have scored for Washington. Pittsburgh 13 shots on goal, Washington 11. For Pittsburgh, Millen is in goal, and Palmetier for the Capitals.
Well, I tell you, Pittsburgh hasn't had a great season under Eddie Johnston, not a bad one. But if that Malone is back, they will make the playoffs. He has been hurt for a good part of the season, and a fine, aggressive sentiment. Now Jerry Cheevers has been handed a list. There's Bourque, who's going to go in. It all started, that is the most recent hassle, with the Ray Bourque, Al MacAdam battle, a high sticking to Bourque. Then they're in the fight. Then McCrimmon, Greg Smith.
Paul Schmier, the captain of the North Stars, explaining the situation to Glenn Sonmore, the coach, as he was explained to by the referee Dave Newell. And he gave him a list of the paper, and now we're going to have a problem because Schmier is going over at the instruction of the coach to speak to the referee about certain things that are on the list or aren't on the list or whatever. And we will have a further delay as...
And Newell's not going to talk to him.
I got to tell you something. I don't blame him.
So that's it. And Schmier reluctantly comes back to the Minnesota bench to Glenn Sonmore.
And Jerry Cheevers is not too happy over it either, so I'm sure there are things on his list he doesn't agree with. Standing there sort of saying something to Newell. He finally blows the whistle. We'll try to get a report on the penalties for you. which I'm sure will be many in number. And maybe this will be the starting point of hockey here at the Boston Garden. The North Stars and the Bruins, no score, 11:02 left to play in the first period. And the word on both benches is go up and warm your legs up, because we've been standing around for a long time.
I didn't put a handle on the how long the delay was, because we just didn't expect it to be this long.
Well, the game started at 7:30, or at 7:35. By my watch, it's now 8:35, so it's taken us an hour to play.
9 minutes.
That's it.
And you keep thinking of that Rodney Dangerfield line. I went to a hockey game the other night and saw a fight. I went to a fight and saw a hockey game. One of
I think he went to a fight and saw a hockey game, didn't he?
That was it.
Yeah.
Newell and Schmier still debating a point. That is Schmier with him.
While we have a moment, Fred, we're going to have Ken Hodge on at the end of the second period, talk about the Massachusetts Celebrity Sports Carnival to the benefit of the Special Olympics. And Ken Hodge done a magnificent job as state director.
John, they're going to announce the penalties at the end of the period. That's a good move by Newell, but initially 6 minutes of minor penalties up there against Boston, and that would be for Bourque's high sticking. That would be 2 of them that would create an imbalance. And I think McCrimmon grabbed 1 or 2, certainly 2 of them, and maybe there's another one, maybe Crowder, they're just whatever. But it will be 6 minutes. The Bruins will be shorthanded. That's the divided, I am sure, into minor penalties, 2 minutes each. But the immediate advantage goes to Minnesota for the next 6 minutes.
Dave Newell has made a judgment that he will not give out any of the penalties until after the period is over. I would say, Fred, your assessment is probably correct. However, they should put them on the board individually, because there will be delayed penalties if they are involved 3 players. If the 6 minutes is against 1 player, then it will be a different situation than it would be if it was against 3 players. So they're going to have to break it down on the penalty board in order to make the thing work.
And perhaps that's the point that Cheevers is arguing with Dave Newell right now, saying, how is this going to work?
Well, Boston could have actually 4 minors in the penalty box. They've got already a bench minor, which was Crowder. I think he's the other player. He may get an additional penalty for coming out of the penalty box. In fact, he may get a double minor. I'm not sure how that is assessed. I have to look it up. But it could be Crowder, McCrimmon,
and Bourque,
Ray Bourque. So that would be 3 minors, which should all be posted on the board, because the Bruins will be 2 men short at one point, but they will be delayed penalties. So he's got to put them up individually in order for us or the people here to see what's going on. I think it's ridiculous.
And still the wait goes on. The faceoff will be in the Boston end to the left of Vachon. 11:02 left in the first period. There are no players are in the penalty box now. And immediately it's a 4-on-3 situation for Minnesota. And there are the empty penalty boxes. They have been jammed since the beginning of this game. And Tony Noda, who handles the clock, is saying, how is this going to work? How do you get players back out? How does he signal to somebody to come back out? There is Tony Noda saying you've got to have somebody in there.
I don't understand this, Fred. They got 6 minutes up there. If they're minor penalties, somebody's got to be in the penalty box. Somebody has got to be off the ice. The North Stars are entitled to a man advantage at this moment, as far as I can see. Should be 4 against 3 with a delayed penalties against the Bruins. They need 1 more man in the box, I would think.
Right now they've got Bourque and Cashman in there.
With 3 men on the ice, 2 in the penalty box, they only have 6 men left on the penalty box. rather on the bench. Peter McNabb, Milbury, O'Reilly have disappeared into the dressing room, as has McCrimmon.
So there are 9 players and Rogie Vachon for the rest of this period.
I think the Bruins need to have one more man in the penalty box unless Cashman or Bourque have been assessed 4 minutes in penalties. One player, 4 minutes. Now, it could be Ray Bourque. I don't know. But I think they'll have to have one more man in the box.
As usual, you are right, and it is Steve Casper going in.
Now we've got it straightened away where it makes some sense, because the Bruins now have 3 men in the box to 1 for the North Stars, so the North Stars will have a 4-on-3 situation. The penalties on the board will have to be broken down before they start play. Cannot leave it the way it is.
The other factor, of course, is that the Bruins are down to 3 defensemen, Park, Redmond, and O'Connell, while Bourque is in the penalty box depending on when he comes out. Came to a hockey game and saw a debate.
Well, they got to have another man in the penalty box. I forgot about Kreider. He's not there. He was the one that was serving the original penalty. The North Stars need a man in the box. They've got one. The Bruins need one more.
A game almost without precedent in this situation, with a wild brawl erupting on the runway. Harry Sinden, the Bruins general manager, is in communication with Gary Doak behind the Boston bench.
I would say that Kevin Collins, the linesman, is trying to explain the situation to Dave Newell. Crowder was in the box on a bench minor, along with, I'm not sure who went in for the North Stars, but he is in the box. They have 1:08 left to serve. The Bruins have been assessed 3 minor penalties to individual players, so that means they'll have 4 men in the box, or when the one, maybe they don't need to put that man in. With 1 minute and 8 seconds left to go on that penalty, the North Stars will have a 2-man advantage.
The lone forward is Rick Middleton. Mike O'Connell and
now Bourque going on. And MacAdam's going after Bourque, and here we go. Now you don't want to fool with MacAdam, although Bourque is a tough one.
Bourque is tough, but he's met his match right now. And I think he realizes that Bourque is second-year pro, the Calder winner last year, a good hockey player, but he gave a cheap shot to Al, and Al responded. Bourque will get an extra misconduct, and in the corner we've got number 29, McCrimmon, and he's trying to pick out who he's with right now. I believe it's Greg Smith in the far corner. How'd you like to try and set your lines for this game?
There's Greg Smith, 23 of the North Stars. McCrimmon has been in the penalty box already tonight, and now Al MacAdam will be getting the gate for Minnesota.
Okay.
Not going to get any better. The Philadelphia Flyers are coming up Saturday night. Now Smith giving McCrimmon a pretty good going over.
Linesman cannot do it. They can't put one linesman in there because somebody's going to get hurt. They're better have to stand back.
Now we're going to have to check our North Star fax book. I wish Dick Dillman was here, because we are going to have, I'm sure, a North Star record set here for penalty minutes, not only in a game, but probably in a period. Al Roberts and McCrimmon are going at it.
Greg Smith is being restrained. There's hardly any players left on the ice. Get the official out of there. I don't understand why we've got one.
But of course, you know,
here comes the North Stars off the bench. We're going to have penalties like you want. Even the trainers are going across the ice. Doc Rose and Larry Ness. Not a good place for the trainers to be. Are being held back by the restraining walls.
Beavers is in it. I don't know if you can get a shot of that across the way. Better get the older man out of it.
Glenn Sommer going across. Everyone is into it. We're going to be here for quite a while yet.
Now a fan has jumped down in there, and believe me, he could really get seriously hurt.
The thing is, all the players are fairly close right now. And we got McCrimmon and MacAdam on the ice, and they're tugging each other. We can't pick it up. You can see the cameraman's over there, the police, the officials, everyone is into it. The trainers, there was a fan into it. There's Hartsburg. Hartsburg has come out of the dressing room to help his teammates. He's not back on the ice. We have no one left. The only people left now on the Minnesota bench are the coach, Glenn Sawmore. Here's this fight, and I would like to see Al deck him. I'm really upset. It's a bunch of nonsense. And it takes place here, and we're always the ones behind the 8-ball.
Well, John Gilbert of the Minneapolis.
McCrimmon and also MacAdam. The referee, Dave Newell. And anyone who knows Al MacAdam knows the kind of an individual he is. Very low-key, but doesn't like the nonsense.
Now, you can bet the National Hockey League is going to get a written report on this. There will undoubtedly be quite a few fines and possibly even a few suspensions to come out of this.
Well, there's got to be. There's just no question about it. And it started right from the beginning of the...
Ray Bourque of the Bruins. Al MacAdam of Minnesota. Then we have Brad McCrimmon of the Bruins. Greg Smith of Minnesota. There's no hockey here, all fighting. McCrimmon again, look at the linesman. He's sandwiched between McCrimmon and Roberts. Then a fight breaks out in the penalty box. That's the trainer right there. This is incredible. Tonight in Boston, North Stars and the Bruins. There was no score. They didn't play. The game was held up an hour. They couldn't play.
Just 2 years in the league, and McCrimmon has already made his mark as one of the tougher defensemen around. Last season, this fight with Gordie Roberts of the Minnesota North Stars was just the warm-up for one of the wildest melees in National Hockey League history. 406 penalties.
And they're required to do more physically. They can make about twice as much in starting pay.
McCrimmon and Roberts go at it, and Roberts pounds him down. So, thankfully, the linesman, Brossiker, steps in. Gordie Roberts and Brad McCrimmon. McCrimmon already was being bounced out for fighting Greg Smith. Fight at the bench. Keith Crowder, Marco Barron, Greg Smith. The bench is empty. A wild scene at the Boston Garden bench.
Now that's how this intense rivalry got started. But since last year's playoffs, these two teams have played it fairly straight and in the process produced some pretty good hockey games.